Welcome back. Sorry for all that.
I'll have cut all of that, don't worry.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome back to Giant Space Visualizer.
No, I'll leave that in.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Carry on. It's fine.
Okay.
Act
Well,
natural.
you've thrown me off. Yeah, natural. My ass. How are we?
I'm alright, I'm alright. I'm still a bit cold. I'm still a bit tired. I don't know, what is this now? Like the 202nd of January or something?
Yeah, it's a long month. It's a long month, but it's soon going to come full circle.
Oh. He's getting these segues. I mean, I don't know what's got into you the last couple of years. You've had that plan, haven't you?
Yeah, a little bit.
Years, yeah, I don't know what I'm on about. The last couple of weeks, though, your segues have been very impressive.
Thank you.
I'm not even being sarcastic when I say that.
Thank you. Yes, of course, we have been watching and reviewing Full Circle, which we're reviewing now. Full Circle. It was written by Andrew Smith, directed by Peter Grimwade, and broadcast on the 25th of October to the 15th of November, 1980.
It sure was. Now, here's a fun fact for you before we get into this. Do you know how old Andrew Smith was when he wrote this?
He was a teenager. I know that much. I don't know his exact age.
17.
Jesus Christ.
How mad is that? You'd be writing Doctor Who at 17. Like, that's a hell of an achievement.
Yeah, that's mental.
I'd love to have been writing Doctor Who at 7. I'd love to write Doctor Who now, except I can't write. Not like I'm illegitimate. Illegitimate? I think I'm just proving my own point. Not that I'm illiterate, obviously.
Well,
It could struggle to be believed after that. This is off to a flying start, as per usual.
Yeah.
No, so the full... Look, what happens in Full Circle, Tom?
Well, the whole story just comes full circle. No. So you wind up... You start off with the TARDIS.
We do.
Romana and Tom Baker. Just flying around, living a wonderful life. And then you get some weird LSD trip thing.
Yeah, because as far as they're concerned, they're going back to Gallifrey because they've been recalled there. You know, it's been a while now since the whole Key to Time shenanigans, and that's the only reason Romana was there. And they finally caught up with them. And Romana, now in his second incarnation, is sort of just like, oh, I don't want to go. Very David Tennant-esque, you know. She's seen the wonders of the universe travelling with the Doctor, and Tom and Lala seem to be on good terms in this episode, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
There's the immediate story after this, from State of Decay, they barely want to look at each other because of the whole, you know, real life romance that's been anecdoted to death by different members of the production at the time. But they seem all right in this one.
Yeah, because this is probably before all that.
Well, it was during. This was during when they were in their sort of arguing one minute and lovey-dovey the next. You know, State of Decay, they don't want to look at each other. They're standing on opposite sides of the set half the time and barely speaking.
Fair.
You know, we go through your weird LSD trip, as you put it, which is the Doctor and Romana and the TARDIS and K9 have all travelled into this alternate universe called E-Space. Have you seen the E-Space trilogy before? Is this your first time watching this?
This is my first time watching this, yeah.
Thoughts?
I enjoyed it, and I'm generally probably going to sit down and watch the rest of it now, after this one. So.
Yeah. I mean, I love the E-Space. I love season 18. I mean, season 18 it's interesting because it's very weird. It's not like much of the other stuff in Tom's era. I mean, Tom's, you know, it's quite easy to look at different Doctor's eras as, you know, their own thing. But within Tom's era, you get like these sort of mini, like, variations on it. Because you get the hard sci-fi of his first series. Then it goes into that sort of gothic horror sci-fi and the Philip Hinchcliffe era before blending into that sort of comedy sci-fi romp over the Graham Williams era before we get Tom's last series here, which goes it's a bit more scientific. It's a bit less, you know, the humor's not gone, but it's definitely dialed down quite a bit. And that's not to say it isn't funny. There's some great funny moments throughout this.
Oh, God, yes.
But it's definitely dialed back a bit, and I think it's an interesting decision to go. I think it was probably the thing that helped Tom decide that it was time to move on. But overall, I really like season 18. The Leisure Hive is okay. It's a bit slow, and Meglos is a bit pants. But the rest of it, from Full Circle onwards, I really enjoy. And, you know, there's some gems in there. Warrior's Gate, I absolutely love. Logopolis is fantastic.
Yeah, Logopolis is great. Yeah. Really good.
And this is, you know, Full Circle is the beginning of an E-Space trilogy, but it also is sort of really the starting point. And it's even been hinted to in the other two stories. It's the series arc, really, which is unusual because it's not... When classic Doctor Who does these arcs, it's very much like... It's a narrative thing. It's like we're doing like the Key to Time. We've got to find these segments of the Key to Time each story, or, you know, the Trial of a Time Lord speaks for itself, really. But this one's is more a subtle. It's very New Who in a way because you have this running theme of entropy, and, you know, in this one, we have this planet's on the brink of collapse now, Alzarius, and there's a starliner that's there to get everyone out of there and everyone back to Pterodon, except the starship isn't ready.
Yeah, they've got to do a lot of maintenance on this ship, so it seems.
And it's been there for generations upon 40 generations, I think they all believe it's been there. And, it's sort of become a bit of an urban myth of, is this, the Starliner's never going to work. It's basically just a big parked hotel for the, elites and whatever of this little colony. And it is a colony ship that's just basically parked.
Yeah. As we come to realise that is very much the case.
Yes, well, that's a very good set of reveals that we get later in the story. But I really like the idea of E-Space. Doctor Who, when it goes to alternative universes, it can tend to it doesn't really do it justice sometimes. It's very much material like, oh, wow, this is a parallel world because look, Zeppelins.
Yeah.
Whereas this is a bit different. It feels a bit weirder, and it does, as you get further into the E-Space trilogy, it definitely plays on that a bit more. Whereas, and you get things like, which we'll get into very soon as a little hint, like the Divergent universe with the Eighth Doctor. It's another example of it being not quite like the universe that we know. And the idea of it slowly decaying and everything is a really cool plot point that's wrapped up really nicely in Logopolis with the CVEs and Logopolitans and all the science and everything, which goes completely over my head when I was younger, but now I've sat down and sort of actually understood what was going on. I think it really works.
No, it does. But as you said, this planet is in a state of decay. We meet Adric.
I see what you did there as well. Go. He's getting good at this.
Yeah, we meet Adric for the first time.
What are your thoughts on Adric? We've not really... we have briefly in our Guess Who game where we have barbecued Adric. Spoilers.
Yeah. Earthshock's great. By Adric. Yeah, he starts off strong. I think with this dynamic with Tom Baker is a lot better for him than it is with Peter Davison, and that is clearly seen. And I kind of, the way Adric was with Peter Davison, I was kind of getting a bit irritated by.
Yeah, I think they clash a little bit too much, Davison, and I think that's because the whole TARDIS team is quite clashy. You've got the Fifth Doctor and Tegan as well, sort of butting heads, and Tegan and Adric.
Yeah.
And this is sort of trying to be like the neutral one in everything, playing devil's advocate to whoever she needs to. But I think, like you said, the dynamic with Tom really works, especially after Romana leaves, and you get those two stories where it's basically just them two. He almost becomes like they almost have a bit of a father-son dynamic, which is quite unusual for Doctor Who, really. It's not something that we see, because alright, it's had male companions before, but you wouldn't really call the Second Doctor and Jamie a father-son dynamic, would you? They're more, they're just mates,
Yeah, they're just like, you could run into them down the pub, sort of, having a pint, like.
The closest thing I think would come to it, and even that's not really close, is the First Doctor and Stephen, maybe.
Yeah.
But even that is just, they're very much, it's just like a older friend and a younger friend rather than, but this feels like a proper full father-son dynamic. And I really like it. Like you said, I think the chemistry is, not quite there as of yet.
No, but it's their first outing together.
Yeah, I think it was filmed second, but it's obviously written as their first one. And yeah, it works for sure. I think with Adric, he's quite different to a usual companion. He's quite slimy in some respects. He leads his brother and his little gang of misfits back to Romana, and they sort of hold her at knife point. And Adric has a bit of a tendency to side with villains a few times as well. And for Doomsday and Kinder and things like that. He's quite slimy in a way. It's almost not backstabbing intentionally, but that's how it ends up being.
Yeah, no, I get you. And even in this, he's caught stealing melons.
Yeah. He's a little
water fruit. Melon thief.
Yeah. I like the first episode of this. It really feels like a proper setup and a prologue to 2 to 4. It's a bit, and it's really well directed, actually, come to think of it. I think Peter Grimway's a really underrated director. I cannot talk today.
It was very well directed, except that one death scene, which...
Oh, of course, yeah.
The death by nutmeg.
Well,
he crawls through his legs, and then you just get this all theatric, whoa, and then bang, and then you get that sound of a stick breaking and make you think he broke his neck, but he didn't. He just gets drugged off into the slimy water.
Yeah, it's not perfect. I don't think that's necessary. I think that's just a part
Actor's
of that is the
choice.
acting as well, and their framing is a bit off as well. But I think, especially the location stuff, I think looks really cool. It's got a bit of a flair to it. You've got the close up of the marshmen and the tracking shots through the forests and stuff, and it does go a bit flat in studio, but the location stuff is really, really nice.
Yeah, no, it was beautiful.
If we talk about Adric's band of rebels, his brother Varsh and his homies.
Yeah, so they don't believe the Deciders when they talk about Mistfall, which is this phenomenon which they all have to go and hide inside the Starliner until the mist calms down. I believe they go on to say it's where the planet's just gotten a bit too close, the planet's just heating up, but something happens and it gets dragged away and it all cools down eventually and everything sort of cocks off.
It's very much like a seasonal sort of kind of thing.
I mean, that's interesting. It's another element to the thing, to the story, which can't be helped, and this is the result of that. But these guys don't believe that it's true, and they've kind of been led to be outlaws from their colony.
Yeah.
And they're living in a cave like a hermit.
I agree. And I agree, that's just what happened.
Yeah.
I like the idea, though, that they sort of renounce the idea of these elites, and they're sort of, they are essentially outlawing themselves by going, now we're going to do things on our own.
Yeah,
they're almost like sort of hermits, but they're not on their own. They
they just don't want to. They don't want to follow they don't believe in their government.
Yeah, they're a bit sort of like old
hippie before it became cool.
We get afterwards. Then the Marshmen begin to rise up, and they actually look quite cool. I thought that first cliffhanger is really effective of showing them rising from the swamps and everything, and it's all very mysterious. It's shot really well, and the silhouettes almost, you don't really see the Marshmen properly until the second episode.
Yeah, and I really like the design of them.
I think it holds up really well.
I mean, it falls apart a little bit when you see them running around and you realise they're just wearing a onesie.
It's basically just a wetsuit, really.
Yeah,
with scales.
But like the actual until they move, it's one of those like that's a really cool costume.
I think even when they move, they're all right, and the use of sort of the distorted pig squeals and everything makes
that was awesome. To be fair, I enjoyed that. Not in that way.
K9 gets a bit of a rough deal in this, though, doesn't he? I mean, K9 gets a rough deal through Series 18 as a whole. Like, he gets blown up in the Leisure Hive, he gets kicked in Meglos, he gets kicked in Warrior's Gate. You don't really see him in State of Decay that much. He gets beheaded in this,
Yeah. I was enjoying K9 Adventures until he became unalive.
It was quite funny, because you were watching him going around and you were like, I quite like this K9 Adventure. 2 minutes later, bam, his head comes off. You're like, eh.
Yeah, it's like K9 unalived is what I've got in my notes.
Yeah, I think John Nathan Turner very much had it in for K9 as soon as he took over, because he goes out with Romana at the end of E-Space, and I quite like K9. I mean, he's definitely there for the kids,
Oh yeah, no, but it was fun as well, though.
Yeah,
it was interesting for the Doctor. I just don't get how Sarah Jane ended up with K9 in the end. I can't remember.
Oh, you haven't seen K9 and Company, have you?
No.
That would be why.
That would be why. Yes, I need to watch K9 and Company, don't I?
Rather you than me. That's all I'll say.
It's going to be another class, innit?
Oh, I won't go that far.
Okay, that's fine.
But now you've put the idea out, the responsibility is yours.
Oh, Christ!
Smash the like button if you want us to see it. If you want to see a girl's best friend K9 and Company reaction.
Oh, I'm gonna cry, aren't I?
It's actually not that bad, to be fair. It's just not that great either.
No, that's fair. Yeah, where do we go from here? So K9 dies.
Yeah, and then we get more of we meet the Deciders, who are basically sort of like the ruling government, and there's the three of them. There's always three of them ruling over the rest of the citizens of the Starliner. And the twist is basically that this ship that they've been going in and trying to get ready to take off and fly off to their different planet to escape Balzarius is the fact that they've actually been there quite long, and the ship could leave at any time. They just don't know how to make it work, which I really like, because you'd never get that in a government, would you, of governing people, where they just, rather than admit they're wrong, would just like to pretend and lie that it's all being worked on and it's all just a work in progress when really they've got no idea.
You would never get that at all. Evening, Prime Minister.
You bunch of...
No, you'd never get the government ever admitting to cocking up the colony. slightly.
No, and I quite like that it's, they're very much doing it in a place of like, oh, but it's for the good of the people and everything. It's like, no, it's just you don't want to, walk out with your tail between your legs, do you?
Yeah, no, it is very much let them live in ignorance while we deal with the fact that we've made a mistake.
Yeah, and it's this story.
Let them live in hope.
Yeah, and I was never at one point watching this story if I ever thought, oh, this feels like it's been written by a 17-year-old.
No,
I think it's a real credit to Andrew Smith as a writer because it's never.
Yeah, it's dealing with strong themes.
It's some strong themes. It's some very high concept sci-fi stuff, but it's not like. It's also not that sort of pretentious where you get like, oh, I'm so much better than this, I'll write it. It's not really. It's just feels like a regular Doctor Who story.
Yeah,
and it's that's not a sort of criticism at all. It works. It really does. I've always liked Full Circle. I think it does become a bit run around in the corridors because the Starliner itself, although that the chamber where the deciders decide, or don't, as it turns out, is quite nicely designed because it's not overlit. It feels very grand. It's nice and dark. It feels like this big empty space. But the rest of the ship is just corridors.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is just all corridor.
Which is a shame. And it becomes quite often, it's just, oh no, there's a Marshman. Quick, let's shut the door. Oh no, there's a Marshman. Quick, let's shut the door.
Yeah.
More.
Inventive.
I was going to say, what's the word I'm looking for? Exposition. But it's a slow build up to realise why, because you think, why have they just been parked here if they could go off at any time? And, it turns out that they can't even fly the ship.
Yeah,
because
that was a very cool reveal.
Yeah.
I thought, their ancestors had the knowledge to fly and they never actually passed that down, leaving him stranded there. So...
Yeah, and the story itself has almost become manipulated because it's like a bit of a reverse of the Doctor's Daughter, where they think this generations-long war has actually been only going on a week. It's the other way around, where they think it was only 40 generations ago. It was actually like 40,000, and they've all evolved from the really crappy-looking spiders to the Marshmen to the people we see now, and it's an evolution that's gone on like thousands of years. The ship has been here, ready to go, but no one's ever been able to pilot it before. It's a really cool idea. And it's a very good twist. It sort of ties it because you think, well, surely they would be able to just work it out. And they can't because it's been that long since anyone's been able to use it. They haven't got that knowledge.
Yeah.
It would be like if we were supposed to try and fly a rocket, but our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents were the only ones that knew how to do it. It'd be stuffed.
Yeah, we would, and we'd have to deal with that. But it's funny you should mention the spiders because Romana gets bit by one in Dirty Swamp Man Cave.
Shrek's cave.
Shrek's cave, yes. That is the new name for this mystical cave.
What are you doing in my swamp?
That is what they said. If you can decipher the language of swamp pig squeal.
No, I haven't got that far. I must be further down the evolutionary ladder. Further, I don't know.
Pembrokeshire. And Adric and the other outlaws effectively just accidentally, in fairness, do steal the TARDIS, leaving Romana to just get, murked, really.
Yeah, I think with that band of outlaws, Vash is fine, and Adric, Adric is Adric, but I thought that Kira and Tylos are very wooden, and they're very sort of like, what is that, Doctor? Oh.
Yeah, it feels very forced.
Yeah, it's not the most natural line delivery in the world.
No.
Especially, even for Doctor Who.
Yeah, even for classic Doctor Who.
Yeah, 80s Doctor Who, there's plenty more performances than this that work. But this is not one of them. And I like the idea that these spiders can sort of infect people and begin that process of the evolution a bit. But it does give Lalla Ward just a sort of an excuse to just menace around for an episode and just be a bit like...
I mean, I'd have great fun doing that, to be fair.
Yeah, you could tell, no lines to learn, just sort of smoulder and...
Smolder, make funny noises and go to scratch someone like a cat.
Meow. That's basically all she was doing.
That is what she was, with a little hiss here and there.
Pretty much.
Yeah. But that was the end. That was how we left it with episode 2, though. Was her conked out on the floor because bit by spider.
Yeah. And then she goes into a smouldering episode. Episode 3, I thought, did drag a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, episode 3 tends to be the sort of one where everything drags because it's you've got all your cards on the table and it's like, got to keep them going for another 2 episodes now before we start to wrap all of this up.
Yeah, it's almost like we're just going to tie up a couple of loose ends here in this bit, that no one really cares about, but they'll notice if it's not tied up. And then we'll get to the big stuff in the last episode.
Yeah.
Is usually the run-of-the-mill shtick. Yes, it's a good word, shtick.
Welcome to Dictionary Corner.
Yeah. So when we finally come round after that 3-minute reminder of what we just saw, which when you're watching back to back is rather unnecessary.
Yeah, there are some long recaps, and it's nothing more annoying when you sort of have to like fast forward for a good 3 or 4 minutes because you've just seen it.
Yeah. We come to see one of the swamp creatures on an examination table in the science lab, as the scientist tries to figure out what they actually are and why they're feared, which is cool.
Yeah, and I love the scene where this whole process is going on, and the doctor finds out about it and just comes in and immediately just like barking at Dexter through the screen and everything. And he's not just, Tom's kept it quite fun and quite like this story, but he's very good at just like switching it when he needs to and going into this like, you're going to stop this.
That's why he's the GOAT. Oh, there we go. We'll get a meme in there one day. I know we've done it.
Are you okay?
No, I've had a long weekend.
Take a drink. We'll turn that into a drinking game soon. And
don't, because we'll get hammered.
This is true. And I like the character of Logan as well, who's one of the deciders that comes in after one of the OG deciders gets nutmegged to death. And he's the heart of the deciders, really. He's not, the others are very much like, no, this is what we must do. This is tradition, where he's got a stake in it. His daughter's Kira, one of the gang of buggers. And he's got a stake in it because he wants his daughter to be safe and everything, and doesn't want to take the mick, and he's not really there he doesn't have an interest in, controlling the masses or whatever. He's got heart and he's got soul, and I think, he's far too good. Logan is far too good for the deciders. He
brings a bit more, he brings some, like, a lot of compassion to the government, because he's like, look, at the end of the day, you're thinking about yourselves, but we've got family, we've got friends here, we got to save them.
They even say that when he's sort of inducted into everything, don't they? Where he's like, they're saying to Logan, you're like, oh, what about your daughter, yeah? Forgetting about her? You're not going to worry about her, are you? Yeah, good. Keep it that way.
Yeah, it's
quite dystopian in a way, really.
Yeah.
This whole thing is quite dystopian, but with like some nice watermelons and stuff.
Yeah. It did look nice. They did make me a bit peckish, I'm not going to lie. And I had just eaten, I know.
Yeah.
I am a large man.
Oh, I can't even bother to cut that out. That's staying in. Can you give us one more of your notes, please, Thomas?
My next one is Romana's started to be affected by the spider bite. I put down on my notes that she's gone wacky, and she trashes her room in the TARDIS, like very teenage girl-esque. You could tell there was a
teenager-esque, please. Let's not do sexism on this channel.
Teenager-esque. And you could tell just a little bit she was happy to get a bit of frustration out with the stuff going on with Tom at the time.
Yeah, that's probably what it was. She's like, bloody hell, he's not answering my calls. God.
He's never here when I want him. Bang. So that was quite interesting. But it seemed to only really awaken when they decided to use oxygen to...
because they're used to the murky, horrible swamps, aren't they? These nice, pristine air on a starliner, especially when you turn that up by opening all these oxygen tanks, is the way to get rid of them. And it's not like, it's quite nice because it's not, they're not beating them up or they're not shooting them. They're just going, "Oi, get out the way." Like in Monkey World, where they used to open the fire extinguishers on the monkeys when they were fighting each other.
Right.
That's what they used to do. On, the Monkey World, there's a place in Dorset with all the monkeys.
Oh, yeah.
They used to CO2 when the monkeys were like, come on then, I'm one of them.
Okay. Let's just...
Might start a third channel and just do Monkey World reviews.
But it was really interesting to see that it was linked... So Romana's condition was linked to the oxygen attack on the swamp creatures, which was nice. It was a nice little twist.
Yeah, and it doesn't take long for the doctor to sort of cure her and give her a bit of a, give her a nice little shot of something to, like a shot, not a shot, to bring her around again. And then immediately then she's sort of helping the doctor figure out the big mystery that it's actually been 40,000 generations rather than 40 or whatever. I can't remember the exact number, but I think that's right. And yeah, we basically get the Doctor teaching them all to... They flood the Starliner with even more oxygen, and Adric mourns the death of his brother for about 10 seconds.
Yeah, then this item he keeps stealing for the Doctor, and then giving back to the Starliner, then stealing again. He puts that on the TARDIS after the Doctor saved the day, and just as he's about to leave, you get a little look in his eye, and he's like, no, I'm gonna hide. Play hide and seek in the TARDIS, like.
Hey, he stows away. He doesn't really get a welcome on board scene in this, like you do get with the majority of companion introductions. He just goes and hides in a cupboard somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, or one of the many, many TARDIS corridors, because we haven't seen enough of those in these stories. Not TARDIS corridors, I just meant corridors in general. And the Doctor basically gives them very simple instructions of this, you know, we know you haven't had any of this generational knowledge or whatever, and the ship is very complicated, but you just, you know, do this, and press the button, and that's how it flies.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, I can't tell if that's, you know, really lazy or really good way of wrapping up and just pointing out how stupid they've been. Because that's the kind of impression I'm taking away from it being like, you know, they full well know it. This ship is relatively simple to fly and it'll seek out a new planet for them. And all they have to do is flick a couple of switches and press a button, but they've been so wrapped up in, you know, controlling the masses and, you know, traditions and all that, that they've just looked past the obvious.
Yeah. It was a bit of a kick in the teeth for them, really, innit? But, I mean, it works. They've got the flight manual for after they get it to start, and they can take it from there then. So at least they know how to take the thing off, and they can pass that down now.
Yeah, and they all live happily ever after, probably.
Yeah. But, we did miss out one thing, though. They can't go back to where they were from, which was Pterodon, because they were never from there, because the ancestors kind of kept it hidden from them that they all kind of evolved from spiders.
Yeah, the whole point is that they were trying to make a return journey, but they'd never actually left. Well, the ship had not been there, but they were all evolved from the horrible-looking spiders and the people in the bogs. The marsh, not toilet.
Yes.
What did you think then, overall?
I really enjoyed this episode. As you said, episode 3, the third part, did drag. But it was doing a lot of setup for the last part, which you kind of expect one of those episodes to be a little bit meh.
Yeah.
Like, no, they're not going to all be hitting on the same wavelength all the way through, because, I mean, I think I'd get bored if that was the case, regardless of how good the story is.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those stories that's... the idea is definitely there. The execution is pretty much there. It just struggles a little bit with pacing in places, but overall, I think the performances are pretty good, especially the older characters, not so much the young ones. But yeah, it's a promising start. It introduces some really cool ideas that do get wrapped up in a fairly satisfying way if you carry on with season 18. So
yeah,
another review done and dusted then.
Yes, it's another review come full circle.
Yeah, I did too many times now.
Yeah, I've noticed that, but we're sticking with it. We're sticking with it because I need sleep.
Next week will be another discussion, and I can't remember exactly which one it is because I haven't got the spreadsheet up, so bear with me.
I don't know which one it was either. Which companions?
So next week then, we're going to be taking a bit of a different approach. We're going to be doing a discussion, and we're going to be talking about companions that we want to see return.
And if you enjoyed this video, or you enjoyed our others, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. We're really grateful for it.
Please do.
And follow us on socials. We're on Twitter, we're on X, we're on TikTok, and Facebook.
I haven't done the Facebook one for ages.
Yeah, to be fair.
Nobody uses Facebook anymore.
It's just for...
Best place is Twitter.
Yeah, best place to get hold of us is Twitter. But yeah, have a nice evening or day or whatever the hell you're doing.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Ta-ra.